Well, we're back again, and just the usual reminder, if you go look at the YouTube video and then down below under the description, open that up, and we've got the index of this current meeting, and so it'll have a like timestamp, and then it'll say what we're talking about, and then that YouTube magically puts that on the slider bar then on your video, so you can either click on the entry at the bottom that puts you in the video at that time, or just move your cursor back and forth, and you can see what gives you a description of what's happened in that time section. And then we got other various things. There's a link out to the YouTube video page where it's got all these videos are stored, and then we got the composite index where I take the description off the YouTube video each time and append those together, so it goes back several years. So it's got, if you want to search for stuff we've been doing or just see what we've been doing, you can look at the index, and right from the index you can click on the link. It'll take you right out, it'll play the video for you. And so that's a handy thing and I basically put that together because I wanted to know, I was recording all this stuff, thought it'd be handy. It's useless if you don't have some kind of index, because nobody's going to go back and watch. I think we got over 200 videos right now. And then the other thing is I've got the original ROS Agriculture stuff that we started with. I started indexing that, and I've got like about 200 of the 250 videos on that indexed. And that's a more crude, cryptic thing because it's a text-based file, and it's not fancy looking, but it does indeed work. You can go in there and search up, search for GPS or search for whatever your product is you're looking for, and we may or may not have information on that. And there it's got a link that you have to cut and paste that into a browser, because those do not exist on YouTube anymore. You can't pull up an index page, a regular YouTube channel for that, because Matt deleted all that stuff off there. The videos are still there, so until further notice, if you just take my link and paste it in there, you can go watch all those old videos. And if you got something specific you're looking for, or you're just bored sometime, you can go through and do that. And there's various other things out in that description at the bottom. And I can never remember what it is, but that's probably enough to be said about that. Now, as far as what I've been doing, we had the whole Thanksgiving, and then the Black Friday and the Cyber Monday, and so I spent a lot of time, digging through and trying to say, well, can I get a good deal? And I ordered a bunch of stuff, so I was waiting for it to show up, and then Amazon lost some of my stuff, and then it finally showed up. And but other than that, it's just it's like, say, oh, well, what'd you get for Christmas? Well, let's say I ordered up some connectors. Well, I never order anything fun. I always just get just stuff that I think I might need for prototyping or whatever, and that's usually what I end up buying. And other than that, I was just waiting for that stuff to show up and fighting with the shipping pages to see, when's this stuff going to show up and whatever. So I really haven't gotten anything done. And I think I was telling the guys before we started here some of the stuff I was doing. Now I don't even remember what that was, but anyway, so I'm going to say I haven't done anything, even though we didn't have a meeting last week. They gave me a whole extra week. I still didn't get anything done. So I
You got your
will.
internet clocks ordered?
Yeah. Well, they're technically not internet clocks. I ordered some WWV clocks. I technically it's called WWVB, and it's just a clock you set it up anywhere. It's battery powered, and you turn it on, and it's looking for the signals coming out of Boulder, Colorado, and it turns out if you have the patience, you can just turn it on, sit there and wait. It will pop up with the correct time and date, and you don't have to do anything with it. My older stuff, I'd always have to resort to turning one on, and they have to go set the time manually, and then sometimes it would either change it or not change it. But so anyway, those they're kind of handy to have because they know what time it is. And the little one I got, that seems to be working really great. I can turn it off, and it shuts off completely. I just had a switch on the side that said on off, and I thought, well, what's that do? So I turned it off, and it turns out, yeah, it killed it completely. I turned it back on, and I realized it didn't know anything anymore. But it, like in 60 seconds, pops up and says, oh, here you go, here's your time and date. So that one's working really well. It seems to be a nice sensitive receiver, and I was really happy with that. I think that was like $15 or something they paid for that one. And then I got the bigger one, and it was like $18 I had to pay for that one. And that one acts funny. It doesn't seem to, I don't know if the receiver's not sensitive enough or what its problem is, but I had to do a lot of screw around. Once it came up, it seems to be working now. But you know, I got those, and I got various things that I bought here. I can't even remember what they were. I did order two food scales because I say one time I ordered those load cells. They're like 5 kilogram load cells and a little a board to adapt those. So yes, if I wanted to, I could build scales out of those. I thought, well, but I don't want to have to build the frame and everything to make it work. So I was looking on there, and as their Black Friday special, I could order a small food scale for $5.09. And I thought, hey, I that would be much easier than just buying the parts and screwing around trying to make this stuff work. So basically, that gives me the base, the plastic base on the thing, and then it's got a round weighing table on top of it, and then those two are hooked together with a load cell. So basically, I figured I could just rip it apart, take the electronics off, and put my little amplifier board onto the existing load cell and use that to measure stuff. So I've got those kicking around if I decide to go down that path any further. And I was looking at data logging and trying to figure out, you know, what do I want to log and where do I want to put the stuff. So I was trying to think, well, if I get an ESP32 and use that, use that like an Arduino to read all my sensors, and then connect to over my home Wi-Fi, connect to either a laptop or to a dedicated Raspberry Pi. So whatever I read up, I can collect it all on this centralized computer, and then decide what to do with it after that. So that's another thing that I I I could take those parts, I could put those in my box of parts I'm never going to do anything with. But then, as I found out, I lost all this stuff. So that turns out to be a different box. That's a box of stuff that could have had promise, but now was gone. So that I finally found that stuff. So I found the boards, and I got to figure out how to load up the Arduino IDE to talk to these things. And that's kind of where I ended up on that project. And I wasn't sure, do I have to get, when I load the Arduino IDE, do I have to find something specifically for this board, or can I just get generic ESP32? And then once I load that up, it's going to work with any of the boards. So that's kind of, again, that's kind of where I'm at on that, to figure out how to do that stuff. So I guess until I get around and do something like that, I guess I got nothing else to report. So I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Go ahead, Al.
Okay, Bob. This is my
Nice.
radio control unit, and on this side you should see two lights. One is a blue light on the top, and hopefully the bottom one is green. It looks like it's still green.
Yep.
The blue light has to do with this mode switch. It's not really terribly required, but it's the top light tells me if I'm in auto mode or manual mode. The light below that is giving me an RTK status, and when you know it, it's decided to turn non-green, which means we're not getting RTK fix at the moment. This light is telling us that this NRF 24 antenna and radio is communicating with the NRF radio on the quote unquote, you know, my robot, the tractor, and it's operating at greater than 5 hertz, which is, if it were less than 5 hertz, it would be yellow. If it were less than 2 hertz, it would be red. So I've been spending time on getting those lights to work. Let me share my screen here. Getting those to work and updating my Miro board to sort of represent what's going on there. So yeah, as you may recall, we were going down this path of trying to use ROS, and part of that path is figuring out how to get microcontrollers to talk, and part of that conversation is whether you're going to use micro ROS or not. I was never able to get micro ROS to work, so what I have done in lieu of figuring out how to publish and subscribe to those is to create effectively my own publisher and subscriber network. So I'm in the process of using UDP ports 6001 to get this correction data from my base station to a Python script, and then I use this port to send out basically status data about how is my RTK fix going. And then I read that data. Yeah, what that looks like is a big mess. But if you looked at this long enough, you would see this as you'd say, ah, that looks sort of like JSON code, and you would see you know, a number of different data elements, including lat lon and the fix quality and the heading and some other data. Actually, that's more than one record.
Where is this coming from?
This particular data is on my RPi, and it's reading this UDP. It is publishing this UDP port 6002. So it's
So this is not your correction data. This is something you've put together.
yeah, that was just showing you what was on UDP port. I put that together and just arbitrarily used 6002 as the port number.
Okay, good. First I thought that was your correction data, but that correction data was unreadable. So that was, I thought, wait a minute, you can read this stuff?
Yeah, the correction data comes over with these, you know, messages and
Yeah.
gets ingested into this function inside this Python script called forward RTCM. So that's my flow.
Okay.
But the reason that's germane is, again, back to this radio control unit. I've got to get data out of that 6002 port that's on my Raspberry Pi down to, you know, what I've physically got represented here is my radio control. And the way I've chosen to pass that status data is the teensy, this radio communication that goes on between my radio control and the tractor follows these two structures. One is the data coming from the radio control, and the other is the acknowledgement that goes back that lets me say, hey, I do have, basically this is like acting like a heartbeat, and I piggied on to that heartbeat the GPS status data. So I'm passing back and forth a total of 14 bytes at 10 hertz on this particular channel of my NRF 24 radios. So that all sounds easy. But it was quite honestly a pain in the, you know what, to get that little LED to light up based on the value of that, because then I had to get it all the way back from UDP port 6002. So I can overcome not having micro ROS, but it's been a little bit of a challenge. That's probably the primary thing that I worked on. I did mention to the guys back up here on my this is a sort of a logical diagram, or more talks about the physical components in my base station. this wasn't as stable as I wanted it to be. In order for it to be more stable, I bought a bigger battery and changed the chemistry of the battery from a lead acid battery to an AGM battery. And so far with it snowing, and I've been able to improve the stability of this by relying on an AGM battery instead of what I previously had. So that was a Black Friday purchase, a new AGM battery. And I mentioned some of that in Slack. Let's just go back to that. Yeah, so that's what the AGM 65-pound AGM battery looks like. It's got 100 amp hours. And I posted a couple of things that just when I get down below, say 12.3 volts, I think this DC to DC converter, although it's supposed to take quite a wide range of input voltage, I think this becomes unstable, and then it drops the RPI. So anyway, this has been stable now that that I've upgraded it. Let's see what else was in Slack. Oh, I mentioned to the guys running. I don't know how anybody can run solar in a state like Pennsylvania where I'm at, because it's like you have days where you don't get any power. And so none, zero. And so that's what it's been a learning experience to see what is going on. And I guess the last thing to mention, Bob was having trouble with his WebRTC, and I posted some code to Bob directly that basically I took my Logitech USB camera and posted this code, which worked for me, that it ran this on, plugged in the USB camera into the Raspberry Pi, got the IP address of the Raspberry Pi, ran this code, and then I could go to a browser on another computer, put in that IP address and port 8080, and it, up came the image of what that camera was seeing. So I don't know, Bob, if that would help you at all, but that was pretty straightforward to just get the simplest of WebRTC video only capabilities, working.
But I like that.
One more time.
Yeah, I might try some of that. My biggest hurdle right now is trying to understand what files have to go into certificates, and here to find out the iOS stuff don't use the regular conventions like the Raspberry Pi does. They kind of hide certain extensions. So like on the RPi, there's a file called Pi WebRTC cert dot mobile config. Well, you type that in, and then I get over to the Pi, and I don't see it at all, and I see something else. So I ask chat, "What's the deal?" Basically, is it, "Oh, Apple doesn't recognize that stuff. You have to use this." So it's, for the last 3-4 days, it's those kind of micro steps. It says do this, so I do it, and it doesn't work, and it's, oh, by the way, Apple doesn't do this, or iPad doesn't do it that way, or whatever. So I think what I need to do is put it on paper so I can better understand which ports are being opened and closed, and because that's been a conflict. Maybe I've mistyped a port entry or something, and it said, "Oh, you're on 8010. You should be on 8443 or something like that."
Yeah,
So
that whole certificate thing, although I recognize the conversation, I'm not sure. In this example, I didn't have to worry about certificates
yeah,
or anything. I made sure that these libraries were installed on the RPi.
yeah,
I put this code, I mean, these, whatever it is, 200 lines of code, 227 lines of code in a file on the RPi, got the IP address of the RPi, ran this code, and then from any browser with the IP address, just go to port 8080 and the video should show up.
okay, I like that.
So when you talk about certificates and things, well, I don't know. I'm not the security guy. I didn't have any security issues just trying to
Yeah,
access port 8080. Um, that was being pushed
yeah,
by the RPi.
yeah. That's because you're going from RPi to a laptop, or
Mhm. The RPi is just acting as a web server, and it's just outputting content on port 8080.
okay.
The browser comes in from any computer
Oh, okay.
that's on that network that can get to that IP address and says, give me what's being published on port 8080.
One of the earlier problems I had was it would not recognize that the Pi and my iPad were on the local network. So it sent me through all these diagnostics, and I knew better because I had a listing. So I went through all the baby steps, and yeah, confirmed. And then they say, okay, here's the next step. And so it's been back and forth and back and forth. And I'm beginning to understand how the stuff works when it's trying to serve up something and receive something. But
Yeah,
I'm getting to the point, man, that I'm to the point that I'm getting really mad, and I'm going to get this come hell or high water. But to be more sane about it, maybe I should not worry about trying to use the iPad. Just go with my Lenovo laptop and do that.
as far as debugging steps go, start with something that's simple and work your way up. If the iPad is adding complexity, I would try to use another path.
Yeah.
If your home router, sometimes not in this case, but in other cases, if on my home router, one device is getting an IP address served up and it happens to be on a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi connection,
Oh,
and another
fun.
device happens to be on a 5 gigahertz subnet or whatever the right language is.
Mm-hmm.
It's been very infrequent, but I have had trouble getting those two to talk as
Oh,
if they're on the same network, even though the IP address
yeah.
looks like it's on the same network. So
Okay.
that I don't know. I don't know what kind of home router do you have, just out of curiosity?
It was supplied through our cable company from Paul Bunyan. I'd have to go look at it.
Yeah, I mean,
It we have an optical line coming up to the house, and then it comes in the house into their box, and then through a modem and stuff like that.
yeah, I was just going to log on to my router for a second so you could see the difference. Yeah, it doesn't like me to log on to it, but I still do. Oh, come on. I have my router happens to come from Verizon,
Hmm.
and this is what the login page looks like. So if I log in
Oh,
and go over here to devices,
oh,
I'm showing 24 devices that are connected at the moment,
oh,
and it shows whether or not it's a physical connection, a 5 gigahertz or 2.4.
okay.
If you can't get to your router to confirm the IP address, I would, I would encourage you to try to
Yeah,
do that. Just
that's a nice graphical way of doing it.
and I would want to make sure they're both on the same
Yeah,
connection type, or one of them is, I don't know if you've got the ability to plug in Ethernet on your Raspberry Pi or not, but
yeah, I've got Ethernet on the Pi, but I'd have to stretch a cable from the other room into the Pi to do it.
I don't know. Jeff, do you have any debugging tips?
No, not that I can think of. The whole thing about 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, I'm not quite sure what the issue is there. I don't know, something I was looking at, they were, yeah, I don't know, this ESP32 stuff or whatever it was, but I was looking at it and it basically said, it says, oh, this does not work on 5 gigahertz. I think it's the board itself, maybe the ESP32 boards. They say these do not run on 5 gigahertz. They all run on 2.4. And that's the only place I run into that, I think my router, just like all the other modern ones, I runs both types of networks and most of my stuff in my house. Unless I just plug in something I'm not paying attention, it might want to talk over the 5 gigahertz and it all seems to figure it out. But so I'm not really sure what what all that means.
Yeah, Bob, I wouldn't put too much um, energy into separating them out. It should all just work.
Yeah, yeah. It's-
I mean, if you definitely know that you're getting an IP address served up and both of them are on the same subnet, it should all just work.
yeah, yeah. But I guess there's the problem is that there's different naming conventions, and the iPad is real picky, and it's suited just yeah. It's just screwy. But now I'm to the point I'm getting mad. I want to see it to the end, even though maybe later on I'll switch over to Grok. Or maybe I'll switch over there and run it through that and see what it says. Maybe it's a little more friendly.
Well, again, if you copied this code onto your RPi and
Yep.
tried to run it, give it whatever name you want,
Yep.
you might get some errors that some of these things aren't installed. Fix
Uh,
those, fix those errors.
yep.
And if this runs and your USB port, you might have to change the port um, name. I think this was USB 0. I've
Yeah.
forgotten where it was in the code. But then from anywhere on your network, you should be able to get the IP address of your Raspberry Pi, pull up
Okay.
a browser on anything else,
Yep.
and see the image.
I'll give that a try.
That is the absolutely simplest
Yeah.
way to get WebRTC to, confirm that it's working, that I found.
Okay. We'll give it a shot.
And I would show it to you now, but I disconnected my USB camera to join this call off of
No.
my Raspberry Pi. I'm done.
Okay. I am.
Yeah, I noticed you were talking about the Logitech C920. You were just showing that in your code. That's what you're running. I looked at my camera up here, and while you guys were talking before, I was looking at it, and it just on the front it says HD 1080p, and it says Logitech, and there's nowhere on the thing does it tell what the actual model number is. So I just pulled up a LS USB, and it says it is a Logitech Inc. HD Pro webcam C920. I just think it's odd that I didn't find anywhere on there that it told me that. So just modern marketing, I guess. That's
I think Amazon told me that it was a C920, but I guess it did mention it in the D messages or something.
and probably in D message, if I'd unplug it and plug it back in, it'd probably come up and tell me right there, but I didn't want to do that while we're running here. I didn't want to run the risk of it crapping out completely. So that LS USB just tells you all the different devices plugged in on USB, and maybe there's like logical USB. Anyway, it shows me a bunch of stuff there. So I did that, and sure enough, it says it is a C920. And so I got another one of those around. I've got one on a tripod here too that I could use. So I've got two of those cameras if I really needed another one for something.
They're not cheap. They're on the more expensive side.
Well, I was buying mine like on eBay or something, so I was getting them a lot cheaper than what what you could. And these are old enough. I don't even know what modern cameras. Oh, they might be really fancy cameras now, but they seem to do the job for me, and it's a fairly nice crisp image. So I'm fairly happy with them, I guess. And the other thing, keep in mind, if you're going to put a camera, say, on your robot and send it over wireless or whatever, the higher resolution cameras you have, the more data you have to push, and the slower everything's going to be, and it's going to be more screwing around. So maybe just the cheapest camera you can find laying around, put that on there. If you just need to be able to see where you're going, that
good.
might make everything work out better. So
Okay.
I suppose you could even put two cameras on. If you can figure out how all this stuff works, you could have one camera, there's a low resolution one just for driving around so you don't run into stuff and making it through doorways. And then have the other one, if you need to see something, you can say, okay, fire up that camera, and they show me a high resolution image. So that might be another way to do that.
Yeah. Well, I just got a text message. I have to go take care of something. So I'll have to check out. Talk to you next week.
Okay.
I'm all set, Jeff.
You guys gonna say, here, I can check my thing to see if Bob left, but as I said, my Zoom doesn't work. So I'll have to try to remember to reload my Zoom after this is all done and see what goes on there. And I guess I got nothing else to say about that either. So, okay. Let me stop the meeting here, stop recording.